Let me ask you something. How do you spot a liar when they've mastered sounding honest? How do you recognize manipulation when it hides behind kindness, calmness, and charm? Because here's the truth. Most manipulators don't lie with words. They lie with questions. Every liar, every narcissist, every smooth talker has one goal: to get inside your mind. And the easiest way in is through your emotions. They don't need to shout or accuse. They just plant small doubts, little phrases that make you question yourself. Before you realize it, you're defending things that never needed defending, apologizing for truths you didn't twist, and chasing peace in conversations designed to keep you trapped. That's the power of manipulation. It doesn't demand control, it invites it. And the moment you start explaining yourself to a liar, you've already lost your calm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the Stoic shield." The liar's weapon is confusion. The Stoic's weapon is clarity. The liar thrives on reaction. The Stoic wins with stillness. In this video, I'm going to expose 5 questions liars use to control you and how Stoic psychology dismantles each one. You'll learn how to stay calm under pressure, how to spot emotional manipulation instantly, and how to become unshakable in a world that feeds on reaction. If you're ready to stop being controlled by words and start mastering your mind, drop a comment below. I see through the lies. And make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join the ranks of the Stoic soldiers, men who use philosophy as armor against deceit. Because once you learn to hear what they really mean, you'll never be fooled again. Now let's begin. This is one of the oldest tricks in the Manipulator's book. Why are you so defensive? They ask it with that fake calm tone, pretending to be the rational one, while they quietly twist the blade. See, that question isn't about truth. It's bait. It's designed to flip the power dynamic. The moment you defend yourself, you've stepped into their frame. You've moved from clarity to confusion, from control to reaction. Because now, you're not standing in truth. You're explaining it to someone who already decided not to believe you. This is how liars work. They gaslight through calmness. They accuse you of reacting to their provocation, and then call your awareness defensiveness. They want you emotional, apologetic, unstable. Because a man who doubts his emotions is a man who can be controlled. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's the Stoic's response. You don't react, you observe. You don't defend, you redirect the question inward. You ask yourself, is there truth here, or is this manipulation? A Stoic doesn't answer emotional traps. He understands that silence is the most uncomfortable response for the manipulator because it forces them to sit in their own tactics. When someone says, "Why are you so defensive?" the Stoic doesn't flinch. He pauses, breathes, looks them in the eye and calmly says, "I'm not defensive. I'm aware." And that's when the game ends, because manipulators thrive on your need to prove yourself. The moment you stop needing that, they lose control. Remember, defensiveness is not weakness. It's awareness misused. When you learn to channel that awareness without reaction, you become untouchable. So the next time someone throws that phrase at you, don't explain, don't justify, just remain still. Because stillness, to a liar, feels like exposure. If you understand this, comment below. My silence is my control. Because that's what Stoicism teaches. You don't win the argument, you win your mind. The second question manipulators love to use sounds gentle, harmless, even loving. Don't you trust me? But beneath those 4 words hides one of the most dangerous traps in human psychology. Because this question isn't about trust, It's about control. They don't ask it to bring peace. They ask it to create guilt. They know your heart. They know your nature. You want to be loyal. You want to believe people mean well. You want to think the best of them. So when they ask, "Don't you trust me?" it hits you where you're weakest, your empathy. You hesitate. You start thinking, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I am being cold. And in that hesitation, they win, because liars don't need to prove their honesty. They just need to make you feel bad for doubting them. It's not a question, it's emotional blackmail disguised as sincerity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can show me I'm wrong, I'll gladly change, but it must be by proof, not by opinion." That's the Stoic's shield. Real trust doesn't need to be begged for. It's proven through evidence, through alignment, through time. But manipulators don't want that kind of trust. They want blind loyalty. They want you to drop your guard, to silence your intuition, to stop observing and start obeying. Because the moment you do, that's when they own your peace. A Stoic man doesn't fall for that. He doesn't respond with guilt. He responds with observation. When someone says, "Don't you trust me?" he doesn't rush to defend himself. He doesn't explain his doubts. He watches. He listens. He lets silence reveal truth. Because people who are genuine will never be offended by your caution. They'll respect it. But liars crumble under it. They can't survive the weight of stillness. So remember this: the man who trusts too easily becomes the liar's favorite target. Never let guilt override your intuition. If something feels wrong, it's not paranoia, it's perception. If you've ever ignored your gut and paid the price, if you've ever trusted someone who made you question your own reality, comment below, "My trust is earned, not demanded." Because from this point forward, you don't hand out trust like charity, you guard it like gold. And the man who guards his trust guards his peace. This one cuts deep because it's designed to make you doubt your own standards. Are you really going to make this a big deal? They say it with a half smile, a sigh, maybe even a soft laugh. But make no mistake, this is not humor. It's strategy. It's a subtle way of telling you that your boundaries are an inconvenience, that your peace is overreacting, that your self-respect is something to apologize for. It's manipulation disguised as reason. They want you to shrink. They want you to feel like the problem for noticing the problem. This is what liars do best. They minimize. They take something that cuts you and pretend it's harmless. They reframe betrayal as a misunderstanding. They call your standards drama. And when you finally draw the line, they act confused. You're really going to make this a big deal? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The Stoic man lives by that. He doesn't measure wrongness by how others feel about it. He measures it by what's right. So when someone tries to downplay your boundaries, don't defend them. Enforce them. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue. You simply say, "Yes, it's a big deal, because my peace is a big deal." Seneca said, "He who does not prevent a wrong when he can is complicit in it." That means if you let people cross the line just to keep the peace, you're teaching them to keep crossing. And every time you stay silent, you betray yourself a little more. The Stoic doesn't negotiate with disrespect. He meets it with composure and consequence. You don't owe anyone comfort at the cost of your peace. You don't owe anyone tolerance for what drains you. You don't need to justify why something matters to you. Because the moment you minimize your standards to keep someone comfortable, you give them the keys to your self-worth. So when they say, "Are you really going to make this a big deal?" look them in the eye, stay calm, and know your silence carries more weight than their laughter ever could. If you've ever had your boundaries dismissed or been told you were too sensitive, comment below, "My peace is a big deal." Because the Stoic man knows what you tolerate defines what you'll suffer, and your peace should never be negotiable. Here it is, one of the most poisonous sentences a manipulator will ever use. If you really cared, you'd... That's not love. That's emotional blackmail. It's the art of using your heart against you. They'll use this phrase to test how far they can push you, to see if your compassion outweighs your logic, to measure how much of yourself you'll sacrifice just to prove you care, because that's what they want. Proof, not peace. And they'll keep moving the goalpost every time you give it. They'll say, "If you really cared, you'd answer me right now. If you really cared, you'd forgive me. If you really cared, you wouldn't bring this up again." But what they mean is, if you really cared, you'd do what benefits me. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee." That means real love can't exist without mutual respect. And any relationship that demands self-betrayal as proof of love is not love, it's control. The Stoic understands this. Caring doesn't mean compliance. You can love deeply and still say no. You can be kind and still set boundaries. You can forgive someone and still walk away. Liars and manipulators twist care into currency. They make you pay for peace with your dignity. And when you finally resist, they'll say you've changed. They'll say you've grown cold. But what you've really done is grown wise. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery in this world means being willing to disappoint others in order to stay true to yourself. So the next time someone says, "If you really cared, you'd..." pause, because that sentence doesn't test your love, it tests your boundaries. The Stoic man answers manipulation with calm silence. He doesn't explain his decisions to people who weaponize emotion. He doesn't chase validation from those who confuse care with control. He simply acts in alignment with reason and lets time expose the truth. If this one hit home, if you've ever been guilted for having boundaries, comment below, "My care is not control." Because from now on, your love will be rooted in truth, not fear. And that's the kind of love the manipulator can never understand. The final question manipulators love to ask is always the same. Why can't you just let it go? They'll say it with a sigh, as if they're tired of the topic. They'll look at you like you're the problem for remembering what they did. But that question isn't about peace. It's about erasing accountability. Liars use this line to rewrite history. They want to skip the consequence and fast forward to forgiveness. They want the comfort of closure without the honesty of correction. And if you let them, they'll turn your sense of memory into a weapon against you. They'll call your awareness holding a grudge, your boundaries bitterness, your standards resentment. But here's what the Stoic understands. Peace doesn't come from pretending something didn't happen. It comes from understanding it, accepting it, and refusing to let it happen again. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone does wrong, it is enough to recognize that he has done wrong." It is not necessary to become angry. That's the Stoic balance, remembering without resentment, seeing truth without rage. You're not holding on to the past when you hold someone accountable. You're simply refusing to repeat a pattern. And there's a difference between forgiveness and foolishness. Forgiveness releases the emotional weight. Foolishness ignores the lesson that caused it. When someone says, "Why can't you just let it go?" what they really mean is, "Why can't you let me avoid responsibility?" And that's when the Stoic becomes immovable, calm, silent, grounded, because he knows the truth doesn't need to be shouted, it only needs to be remembered. Seneca wrote, The man who is wise does not grieve for what he does not have, but rejoices for what he has. That's your power. Gratitude for awareness. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You only need understanding. Once you understand, you let go, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. So when they say, "Why can't you just let it go?" you look at them calmly and think, "I already did. I let go of you the moment I saw the truth." If this resonates with you, if you've ever been told to move on just so someone else can stay comfortable, comment below, "I let go, but I don't forget." Because Stoicism isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about remembering without being ruled by it. And that kind of calm, it terrifies liars. Now that you've seen their playbook, let's talk about how a Stoic responds. A liar's weapon is emotion. They thrive on reaction. They study your tone, your silence, your need to explain. They're not trying to win truth. They're trying to win control. But the Stoic, he flips the entire game. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The liar wants to pull you into their chaos, but the Stoic refuses entry. He doesn't fight to be understood. He doesn't defend what he already knows to be true. He stands still and watches the liar collapse under their own performance. Because here's what they can't stand: stillness. When you stop reacting, their manipulation loses oxygen. When you stay calm, they can't escalate. When you answer lies with quiet observation, they start to unravel. The Stoic response to manipulation is mastery over reaction. You control tone, you control pace, you control presence. You never argue to prove a point. You remain calm to keep your peace. Seneca wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." That's why the Stoic never lets emotion guide his speech. He knows the man who stays silent under pressure holds all the power. Because silence isn't weakness, it's psychological dominance. Here's the truth. Every manipulator expects resistance. They prepare for anger. They feed off argument. But when you meet their storm with absolute calm, they break. They realize they can't control a man who's mastered himself. So the next time someone tries to twist your words, gaslight your emotions, or bait you into reaction, remember this: the moment you defend, they lead. The moment you observe, you lead. Be the observer, always. If you've ever felt your calm being tested by lies, comment below, "My peace is my power." Because that's the core of Stoicism. You don't need to out-argue the manipulator. You simply need to outlast their chaos. Here's something most people never realize. Liars hate stillness. They can handle confrontation. They can handle emotion. They can even handle anger. But what they can't handle is calm. Stillness is their mirror. And they can't stand to see themselves in it. When you go quiet, when you stop reacting, when your face doesn't change, they panic. Because their entire sense of power depends on your emotional movement. They feed off your reaction like oxygen. So when you give them nothing, they choke. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That's the Stoic advantage. The liar needs you to estimate their words as powerful. The Stoic strips that illusion away. You stop giving their manipulation meaning. You let it dissolve in your stillness. When a liar sees you calm, they realize they can't pull you into their world. They can't confuse you. They can't guilt you. They can't provoke you. And that's when they start to reveal themselves. They'll shift tone. They'll grow louder. They'll start throwing accusations that don't even make sense. Why? Because without your reaction, they lose structure. Your silence exposes their insecurity. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery, in this context, means standing calm when someone tries to shake you. It means letting their chaos die against the wall of your composure. It means understanding that silence isn't the absence of defense, it's the presence of control. Stillness is the liar's undoing because it robs them of attention, and attention is the only thing keeping their illusion alive. That's why when you stop reacting, they'll call you distant. When you stop explaining, they'll say you're cold. When you stop engaging, they'll call you emotionless. But what you really are is free. The liar fears the man who doesn't need to prove his truth, because that man can't be manipulated. He's already conquered the only battlefield that matters, his own mind. If you've ever held your calm while someone tried to drag you into chaos, comment below. My silence exposes the lie, because that's what Stoic power is. Unshakable stillness in a world that thrives on reaction. Now that you've seen the patterns, now that you can recognize the traps, here's where everything changes. Awareness alone isn't enough. It's what you do with it that defines you. When you first realize how often people manipulate, how often emotions are used as weapons, it's easy to grow cold, distrustful, guarded. But the Stoic doesn't build walls, he builds wisdom. He learns to see through people without letting bitterness blind him. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's how awareness becomes power, by embodying the lesson instead of resenting it. You start to move differently, you speak less, you observe more. You stop reacting to tone and start listening to intent. You stop defending yourself because truth no longer feels threatened. You begin to understand that every manipulator, every liar, every emotional trap, they're not testing your intelligence, they're testing your control. And once you master that, you become untouchable. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." These experiences, the lies, the games, the betrayals, they were your training grounds. You weren't being broken, you were being refined. Every time you stayed calm when someone lied, every time you refused to react, every time you saw manipulation and chose peace, you forged something rare, inner power. Awareness turns into strength the moment you stop letting other people dictate your emotional climate. You stop chasing closure. You stop explaining your worth. You stop over-giving to those who under-respect you. And suddenly, your energy changes. You move like a man who doesn't need validation because he already carries truth. That's the Stoic advantage, the transformation of awareness into sovereignty. You're not above people, you're simply beyond their control. If this chapter of your life has opened your eyes, if you've started to see through the masks and hear the lies behind the words, comment below, "Awareness is my armor," because that's what it truly is, armor forged in experience, polished in silence, and strengthened by restraint. And when awareness becomes instinct, manipulation dies before it begins. By now, you see it clearly. The world is full of voices that try to pull you off balance. People who lie, twist, guilt, and disguise control as care. But the Stoic understands something they never will. You don't fight manipulation with anger. You don't beat deception with shouting. You win with presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look." That's the secret. Everything you need to stay unshakable, it's already inside you. The moment you stop reacting to manipulation and start observing it, you step into your power. You stop being a pawn in someone else's emotional game, and you become the master of your own mind. Because here's the truth: liars can twist words, but they can't twist reality. They can distract you from truth, but they can't destroy it. And once you stop letting emotion guide your response, their tricks stop working. You become untouchable, unprovocable, unmoved. That's the final stage of Stoic power, when silence speaks louder than argument, when calmness becomes command, when your peace becomes your greatest weapon. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That delay, that pause before reaction, that's where you build your empire. That's where you separate yourself from the chaos that controls lesser men. So the next time someone tries to twist your words, guilt your heart, or make you question your truth, breathe, observe, and remember. A manipulator only wins when you forget you're calm. If this message struck something in you, if you're done being controlled by lies and ready to master your mind, then it's time to act. Like this video to amplify Stoic wisdom. Comment below, "My calm is my power." Subscribe and turn on notifications to join the Stoic soldiers, men who lead with peace, speak with purpose, and walk through the world unshakable. This is Stoic blessing, where silence is strength, where awareness is armor, and where calm conquers all. Thank you for watching, brother. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay free.